Welcome to Sex Crimes Defense Podcast with Chance and Jay. Chance Oberstein is a defense attorney who handles sex crimes in California. I'm a media professional. This podcast is for informational purposes only, and it's not intended to be legal advice. Chance, we were talking about Jared Leto, and you asked me a question about am I seeing a pattern? And I also want to mention, I think the LaRue person we're talking about was also possibly up for interview to be his personal assistant. So they had, I think they had more than a random.
I think that one of his representatives said that. She denies that, but I think we are starting to see a pattern. So we can get an explanation as to why this is happening. Why now? Because, I mean, that's the first question anybody reading anything would want to ask is, why is it happening now? I mean, all these things allegedly occurred years ago. He was in his 30s then. Now he's in his 50s. He's a successful actor and musician. Why now? And so let me give you one other thing, one other piece of the pattern, just so that we can be complete here and finish this article that I was talking about. Another woman claimed that she began a texting relationship with Leto when she was underage. She said things could turn uncomfortable when she visited his home, with the actor asking her sexual questions. In an alleged encounter when she was 18, the woman claimed Leto suddenly pulled his penis out and started masturbating, then walked over, grabbed her hand, and put it on him. Okay. This sounds kind of like indecent exposure and sexual battery, but there are issues and questions, okay? And this of course occurred when she was 18, okay? So this is not, she's not a minor at 18, but you may want to ask yourself, one, what were they doing at his house? I mean, how did that happen? And two, what at this late stage, instead of like calling the police immediately and reporting it and having an action taken at the time, why now? What is it? Does it sound like now someone's looking for criminal liability, or are they looking for civil exposure? What do you think, Jay?
Well, I do wonder, why is it? Does something happen in the mind after 15 years, and what was once exciting becomes guilt and self-loathing? But before I get to that, because I have wondered that before. Cafe girl, he stares at her, it's creepy. This girl at his house, he made her feel uncomfortable. Again, was it creepy and uncomfortable at the time, or was it creepy and uncomfortable later?
Good. Well, did it morph into creepy and uncomfortable when maybe the outcome is profitable? I don't know. Okay, but what I do know from my vantage point is that it's awfully late in the game to be calling for criminal liability. And I think about this in terms of potential criminal and civil law exposure for what it seems to be sexual battery or sexual assault and indecent exposure. Civil and criminal statutes of limitations may be different. Victims of sexual abuse may be subject to varying multi-year statutes of limitations depending on where the wrongful sexual conduct occurred. It appears that it's occurring in California. Now, however, the law recognizes the unique nature of these types of injuries, including the trauma that may follow the child into adulthood. I mean, that's what it seems like we're talking about here. In those states that recognize a pause or a tolling of the statute, the clock starts running once the minor reaches a certain age, typically 18. That means legal action may be available for someone who may have otherwise run past the time limit to file their civil action. Okay, and that has meaning to me, because when I ask myself I read the articles and I see the exposure, I see leverage and pain, being given out here. I think about civil liability, okay, because that seems to be where, in my mind, this is going. It's not about criminal activity. It's too late in the game for that, okay? It seems to me that it's about civil liability And you asked a good question initially. Statutes of limitations. Why now? And I'm thinking because California typically, when you look at California civil procedure, it's 10 years from the date of the incident or 3 years from the date when the victim knew or should have known of the sexual abuse or assault, which can apply to a minor. Also, very interesting, we have Assembly Bill 218. And this is, where you must file a lawsuit by the time you're 40 or within 5 years of when you should have known that you were sexually abused or assaulted. That seems to be key here, in my opinion. So what it seems, it seems like this is going civil liability. And of course, the tactic is, media exposure and, some sort of settlement to put the jack back in the box. What do you think?
So, okay, I'm trying to interpret everything you said. So, are you saying under criminal statute he can't be criminally prosecuted?
Maybe or maybe not, but
Maybe.
unlikely.
Unlikely. Okay.
Mhm.
But under civil statute, and I think you read Assembly Bill, he can be sued civilly.
I think that's where it's all at. I think yes. I think that it's going,
So-
going in that direction.
So we're to look for that'll be next. So first you put the allegations out there, and now we look for that civil lawsuit number.
Well, who knows what? I mean, did they approach Leto, or have they been in contact with his people, his attorney, or is there a pushback and then the media exposure and then a rethinking, a reconsideration of where we're at once you get slimed and some kind of settlement? Think about Diddy. What happened originally with him? He tried to put the jack back in the box too, but there were a lot of things hanging out there. Once the allegations were made, maybe the statute of limitations for the criminal liability were still viable. Here, these are like really low level, sounds to me more like misdemeanor conduct. I don't think the criminal liability here is where it's at. I think this is more of a civil action.
Well, you just made me think of, again, as a layperson, that case law lays foundation. And the more cases that come up that are wins, the more likelihood that a case like this that's debatable could be swung into a win.
Well, these are really tough cases, especially for people who have celebrity. I mean, these are tough cases. And what are we talking about? Conduct that happened years ago. I mean, who takes account of potential witnesses, emails, phone calls, and such? I mean, you're totally compromised by the time this thing comes around.
Exactly. I was thinking, okay, let's go back to the cafe. The girl says he locked eyes on me. He was, really on to me, and my mom was there. And I'm trying to imagine that. I can't quite imagine it because mom is there, but he's locked on her, and he gets her number. I can't figure that out. So we got to go back 15 years and find her text message that says, "Oh my God, I'm at a cafe and it's Jared Leto and he's looking at me and it's amazing." I mean, tell me that didn't happen.
Well, I mean, what about him? I mean, what about, any of these allegations? How do you defend against these things all these years later? I mean, who was around you? What do you have? And I'd say like next to nothing. And then it becomes like a he said, she said. And then if you get little tiny pieces here that you can try to tie together to make the case, where did the scales tip? It's a very, very rough place to be in. And probably the best avenue and the wisest avenue is just to say, forget all that. I don't even need the exposure. This is bad news for me. Okay, because this kind of stuff sinks ships. I'll just settle it.
Right. And you said it, getting slimed. Is there any recourse for the text that says he's going on 29 years of being a pedophile? Please. Do you think you went too far?
A little bit.
That is harsh, first of all, isn't that slander?
Well, the deal is this, and it sounds like it. It sounds very much like it because pedophile is not just something you kick around. I mean, that's that takes a
Modern
psychological
society does.
professional to come down to the conclusion that that's exactly what a person is. People kick that around a little bit too much, and under these facts, you know, this could be a whole bunch of nothing. It could be a wild man's attitude as an actor in his 30s. I don't know, but it certainly doesn't sound like much. It just sounds like civil liability and the opportunity to cash out. This is any celebrity, whether they're an actor, a singer, or whatever sports, um, an athlete, or I mean, they're all subject to this kind of stuff. And the spotlight now is on Leto, but it shifts inadvertently in all kinds of different ways. And so, you know, when looking at this, the whole idea is that when we perceive it a certain way, because we get these subliminal messages that tell us this guy is a predator, he's a pedophile, he's this, he's that, because we look at the titles and we look at the pictures and we say, yeah, because subliminally we've been trained to conclude those things. We have to draw back from those things, and presume, as we always should, that a person is innocent until proven otherwise, and not try this thing in the media, but think about this logistically from reading the article and testing the facts, and then thinking about what box does it go in? Does it go in the criminal box? Does it go in the civil box? What are these people really after? And really, what's the underlying truth here? What do you think?
I think you're listening to Sex Crimes Defense Podcast with Chance and Jay. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks so much. Thank you much.